All right, so we're diving into a case today that's going to send chills down your spine, I'm warning you.
Oh, I bet.
It's the murders of Joe, Michelle, and Christy Rogers.
Wow.
And let me tell you, this isn't your typical whodunit.
Okay.
We've got a family vacation gone terribly wrong, hidden secrets, and a killer. Well, let's just say they were hiding in plain sight.
Hiding in plain sight, huh? Those are always the scariest ones.
Absolutely. And by the end of this deep dive, you'll see how something as small as handwriting.
Handwriting.
Yeah, on a travel brochure of all things, ended up cracking the whole case wide open.
I'm intrigued already, so fill me in. Who are the Rogers?
Okay, so picture this. The Rogers family from Ohio.
Okay.
Hal, the dad, stayed home, while his wife, Jo, and the two daughters, Michelle, she was 17, and Christy, 14.
Teenagers.
Yeah, headed down to Florida for a vacation.
Sounds like a classic family trip.
You can imagine the excitement, especially for the girls. Florida, sunshine, beaches, the whole 9 yards.
Their first time, I bet.
Exactly. And they did all the classic road trip things, sending postcards from Orlando, picking up souvenirs along the way. Michelle even called her boyfriend from Tampa, all excited, telling him about their adventures.
Sounds like they were having a blast.
It's just heartbreaking to think how fast it all went downhill.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what happened?
Well, the discovery of their bodies was horrifying. The Coast Guard found them in Tampa Bay.
Oh, no.
3 women, bound, gagged, weighted down, just awful.
I can only imagine what that scene must have been like for the investigators.
And to make matters worse, there were no IDs on the bodies, no missing person reports filed in Tampa. It was a total mystery. Who were these women?
A real mystery, so how'd they figure out who they were?
This is where things get interesting. It was a housekeeper at a Days Inn, of all things.
A housekeeper.
Yeah, she was the one who noticed the Rogers family hadn't checked out, alerted her manager, and boom, that seemingly small action set off a whole chain reaction that led to their identification.
Wow, those little things can make all the difference.
It's crazy, right? Like dominoes.
Exactly. And in this case, it led to some pretty dark revelations.
Right, and one of those dark revelations was this last photo on their camera.
What was it a photo of?
It was a sunset over Tampa Bay, a beautiful sunset, can you imagine? Their last moments of freedom captured like that.
A haunting.
Absolutely. And as the investigation went deeper, a dark family secret emerged. It involved Hal's brother, John Rogers.
The uncle?
Yep. And he had a pretty disturbing past, a history of sexual abuse, even threats made against Michelle.
Okay, now that definitely puts him on the radar.
Oh, absolutely. But it's not just about him being a potential suspect. It's his connection to Florida. Think about it. He had been to some of the same places the Rogers family visited during their vacation.
So it's not just finding the who, but also the why.
Right. Was John's presence a coincidence, or was there something more sinister going on? And the fact that he had been to those places, well, it made everyone wonder if he was somehow involved, whether directly or indirectly.
I see what you mean. It adds a whole other layer to the investigation.
Exactly. It makes you question everything. And it's a scary thought, right? That sometimes danger can be lurking right within your own family.
Definitely a disturbing thought. So did the investigation focus on John?
It did for a while, but then the attention shifted to Hal, the grieving husband and father.
Why the shift?
Well, people started talking. You know how it is, small towns and all that. Hal was very stoic in public, and then there was a $7,000 withdrawal from his bank account not long after his family disappeared.
Oh, I see. That does raise some eyebrows.
It does, right? It's amazing how fast suspicion can shift, and sometimes people just jump to conclusions based on limited information.
Public perception can be powerful, especially in these high-profile cases. You've got the media, rumors spreading like wildfire, the pressure to find answers. It can all create this environment where assumptions become accusations.
You're right, and in Hal's case, it might have been a misinterpretation of his grief. He was dealing with an unimaginable tragedy, and everyone grieves differently.
Absolutely. And what about the withdrawal? Was there an explanation?
It turned out that the money was actually meant to fund a search for his family. Hal even passed a polygraph test, suggesting he wasn't involved.
So back to square one, in a sense.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got John Rogers with his troubling past, Hal under suspicion but seemingly cleared, and a family vacation turned deadly. But the investigation wasn't over, not even close.
I bet there's a twist coming.
Oh, there is a big one. Another case from a year earlier popped up, and it added a whole new dimension to the story.
Oh, this is getting good. Tell me more.
So this other case involved a Canadian tourist, Lucy, who was raped by a man named Dave Posner on his boat in Tampa Bay.
On a boat? In Tampa Bay? Are you serious?
Yeah, and get this, the details of Lucy's attack were very similar to the Rogers case. A Dirk car, a blue and white boat, even the use of duct tape.
Oh, hold on, that's way too many similarities to be just a coincidence.
Exactly. And to make it even creepier, the FBI had a profile of the perpetrator based on Lucy's account.
Yeah,
It matched Dave to a T, like he was a predator hiding in plain sight.
this is getting scary.
It is. And this new case wasn't just a random coincidence. It suggested there might be a connection, maybe a serial offender operating in the
A
area.
pattern of behavior.
Precisely. And that connection, well, it was about to get even stronger thanks to a Tampa resident named Joanne Steffi and her run-ins with her neighbor, a guy everyone called Obi.
Obi, what's his connection?
He fit the description of Dave, and guess what? He owned a blue and white boat.
Wow, hold on, this can't be just a coincidence, right?
Nope. And Joanne, after seeing Dave's composite sketch in the newspaper, she had this gut feeling, like women's intuition, that Obi was somehow connected to these awful crimes.
Intuition is powerful. It's like our internal alarm system sometimes.
Totally. And her intuition was spot on.
So what happened next? Did you go to the police?
She did, but that's a story for the next part of our deep dive. So last time we left off with Joanne, right? With that gut feeling about her neighbor, Obi.
Right, that gut feeling. It's like those moments when you just sense something isn't right, like pieces of a puzzle clicking together.
Exactly. And in this case, it was about to lead to a huge e-brochure they found in the Rogers car.
Yet when the police were asking for handwriting samples for.
That's the one. Well, Joanne remembered that Obi had given a quote to her friend for some work, and guess what?
And you wrote it by hand.
He did.
Yeah.
So they had his handwriting.
Handwriting analysis, it's fascinating, really. It's not just matching up loops and swirls.
There's more to it.
Oh, yeah. Experts look at all sorts of things, like the way letters are formed, the spacing between them, even the slant of the writing and how much pressure's used.
Who knew there was so much to it? So is it like a fingerprint, unique to each person?
It's considered a behavioral biometric, yeah. So basically, it's based on those unique patterns, how each person writes.
So it's not foolproof, but it can be pretty reliable evidence.
Exactly, especially when it's used with other evidence. And in this case, when they compared Obi's writing on that quote to the brochure, well, it was a match.
No way. So that was it. They had him right.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But unfortunately, it wasn't that simple. Joanne and her friend, they really had to fight to get the police to take them seriously.
You're kidding. They had solid evidence, a handwriting match.
I know, it's frustrating, right? Imagine having a piece of the puzzle, but no one's listening. It happens sometimes, Investigators get focused on one theory, one suspect, and it's hard to shift their focus.
It's a reminder that even the best investigators are still human. But thankfully, Joanne and her friend didn't give up, right?
Absolutely not. They finally got the attention of Sergeant Moore. He was a new investigator on the case, and he recognized how important their information was.
Thank goodness for Sergeant Moore. So what happened then? They went after Obi.
They did, full force. And once they started digging into his real name, Ober Chandler, well, let's just say his past wasn't exactly spotless.
What do you mean? What did they find?
Turns out, this Obi guy, he had a history of violence, especially against women. And here's the chilling part. You ready for this?
Lay it on me.
He had a thing for using restraints and duct tape in his previous crimes.
Whoa, hold on. Those are the same things used in the Rogers murders and Lucy's attack.
Exactly. Those details, they weren't random. They pointed to a specific kind of person, someone who gets off on controlling and immobilizing their victims.
That's scary. So what did Chandler do when his name started getting out there, when that composite sketch of Dave was everywhere?
He vanished. Gone from Tampa.
He ran.
He did. He knew they were on to him. He moved around Florida, trying to stay one step ahead of the law.
Classic fugitive move. But you can't hide forever, can you?
Nope. Yeah, eventually he got arrested, but for unrelated charges in a different part of Florida. And here's where it gets even crazier. While he was in custody, he confessed to killing the Rogers family.
He confessed to another inmate.
Yep, spilled the beans.
Aw.
But even without the confession, they had a strong case. They had phone records putting him near Tampa Bay at the time of the murders. They had his boat, that blue and white one that kept popping up.
They had a confession. His past matched the crimes. They could place him at the scene. Slam dunk. Yeah.
You'd think, but trials are never that straightforward. The defense tried everything, pointing fingers at John Rogers, even came up with a hitman theory.
Anything to create doubt. So, did it work?
Not a chance. The prosecution used Lucy's case, the handwriting, everything. The jury saw right through it.
So, guilty verdict.
Guilty as charged, and Chandler was sentenced to death. Justice was served, but it doesn't bring back the Rogers family.
It's hard to believe everything we've uncovered in this
It's a
case.
lot to take in.
And even though Ober Chandler's behind bars, his crimes had a lasting impact, not just on the Rogers family.
Right, these cases, they ripple outwards, they touch so many lives.
So let's talk about that impact, especially for Hal Rogers.
For him, it wasn't just the loss of his wife and daughters, it was the public scrutiny, the constant whispers, the accusation.
Yeah, it's like the pain never really went away.
And then to find out years later that the man who did this was a serial killer.
Like a punch to the gut.
It makes you wonder how anyone could ever come back from that.
I know, I just keep thinking about that near-death experience he had, how he saw it as a sign from his family.
It's almost like he needed that to find some meaning in all the loss.
And while Hal was trying to heal, the family of Ivelisse Berrios Begaris, the woman Chandler was linked to later, they had to deal with their own heartbreak all over again.
Can you imagine, years after losing someone, finding out the truth about their death like that?
Reopening old wounds.
It's a reminder that justice can be a double-edged sword, bringing closure, but also bringing back all the pain.
And for the investigators, this case must have taken a toll on them too.
Absolutely. To sift through all the evidence, the dead ends, the emotional weight of it all, it's a heavy burden.
But they never gave up.
No, they didn't. And because of their dedication, justice was served.
And we can't forget Joanne Stuffy.
Her courage to speak up, to trust her gut.
I know, she played a crucial role in all of this. It really shows how everyday citizens can make a difference.
Right, we all have a responsibility to be aware, to look out for each other.
It's so easy to ignore those gut feelings, to think it's nothing.
But in this case, it was everything.
This whole case, it's been a roller coaster, the horror, the anger, but also the resilience.
Yeah, you see the darkest side of humanity, but also the best, the courage, the strength.
It makes you wonder, how do we protect ourselves from people like Chandler, those who blend in, who seem so normal?
It's a tough question. There's no easy answer, but I think it starts with awareness, with trusting our instincts.
And with community, right? Looking out for each other, speaking up when something feels wrong.
Exactly. We can't live in fear, but we can be empowered. We can learn from these cases, share what we know.
So that maybe, just maybe, tragedies like this can be prevented.
That's the hope, that something good can come out of all this darkness.
This deep dive has been a tough one, but it's a reminder that we all have a role to play in keeping our community safe and looking out for each other.
It's about awareness, vigilance, and working together. That's the takeaway here.
I think that's a good place to leave it. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. And until next time, stay safe out there.